The gunshot echoed through the parking lot of Franklin Street Elementary in Toledo, Ohio. 23-year-old Emma Davidson threw her body over her 6-year-old daughter Lily, pressing them both against the cold concrete. Glass exploded above their heads. Screams erupted from every direction. And in that frozen moment of pure terror, Emma's mind did what it always did. It counted. 7 seconds since the first shot. 3 car alarms now wailing. 14 people running. 2 more gunshots. Emma's autism had always made the world feel too loud, too bright, too overwhelming. But right now, in the middle of gang crossfire outside her daughter's school, that same brain that everyone had called broken was the only thing keeping them alive. Before I continue, let me know if you want to see how Emma's unique mind saved both their lives. Please hit that like button. It helps us share more stories like this. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Emma. Most people would have panicked. Most people would have frozen in confusion. But Emma's brain worked differently. While chaos swirled around her, she had already mapped every sound, calculated every trajectory, identified the safest path to cover. Her daughter was crying, terrified, but Emma's voice came out steady and calm. "Lily, we're going to play the quiet game now, just like we practiced. Count with Mommy." Even in terror, Emma turned to the one thing that had always made sense. Numbers, patterns, structure. They crawled behind a blue sedan. Emma's hands moved over Lily's ears, muffling the violence. Her eyes tracked every movement in her peripheral vision. The shooters were positioned at opposite ends of the lot. Red bandanas on one side, blue on the other. The East Side Kings versus the North Side Crew. A territorial dispute that had nothing to do with the terrified parents and children caught in between. But Emma saw what others didn't. She noticed the pattern in their fire. 3 shots, pause, reload. She counted the seconds between volleys. She identified the blind spots. Her brain, the same one that made grocery stores feel like torture and social gatherings impossible to navigate, was now processing information faster than any neurotypical mind could manage. "Now," she whispered to Lily. They moved. 3 seconds of silence. They crossed to another vehicle. 5 more seconds. They reached the school's brick wall. Emma pressed them both flat against it, making their bodies as small as possible. Around them, parents were screaming, running in random directions, easy targets. But Emma and Lily moved like shadows, invisible, calculated, safe. Sirens wailed in the distance. The shooting stopped abruptly. Tires squealed as vehicles tore away from the scene. And then, silence. Heavy, ringing silence. Emma's hands were shaking now. The adrenaline was crashing. Her sensory system, already fragile, was beginning to overload. Too much noise, too much chaos, too much everything. But Lily was safe. That was all that mattered. A police officer approached them slowly, hands raised. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" Emma couldn't speak. Her voice had disappeared. This happened sometimes when she was overwhelmed. The words existed in her mind, but refused to leave her mouth. She shook her head instead. "You got yourself and your daughter to safety," the officer said with genuine amazement. That was some quick thinking. Emma wanted to explain that it wasn't thinking. It was just how her brain worked. But the words still wouldn't come. She simply held Lily tighter. What Emma didn't know was that someone else had been watching her. From across the street, concealed in the shadows of an abandoned storefront, a young man with a red bandana stuffed in his pocket had witnessed everything. His name was Marcus Webb. He was 24 years old. And he was one of the shooters. But he hadn't fired at the school. He'd been trying to stop it. Marcus had grown up in the East Side, raised by the streets after his mother died of an overdose when he was 12. The Kings had become his family, his protection, his identity. Violence was the language he spoke. Respect was earned through fear. He'd done things he wasn't proud of, things that haunted him in the quiet moments he tried to avoid. But watching that young mother shield her child, watching her move with impossible precision through deadly chaos, something inside him cracked open. He saw in her eyes the same fierce protection his own mother had shown before the drugs took her. And when Emma's voice disappeared, when she stood there shaking and mute while her daughter clung to her, Marcus recognized something else. Vulnerability wrapped in incredible strength. He made a decision in that moment that would change everything. 3 days later, Emma was at Fletcher's Market on Cherry Street, the only grocery store she could tolerate. She went at exactly 6:47 a.m. every Tuesday and Friday, when the store was nearly empty and the fluorescent lights hadn't yet reached their full, headache-inducing brightness. Lily walked beside her, holding her hand, reciting the shopping list from memory. This was their routine. Routines made life manageable. Emma turned down the cereal aisle and stopped. A man stood at the far end, facing away from her. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black hoodie. Something about his posture made her internal alarm system activate. She began counting. 8 steps to the exit. 3 other people in the store. 14 seconds to reach Lily's hand and run if needed. The man turned around. Their eyes met. Marcus Webb recognized her instantly. The mother from the school. Up close now, he could see her fully. She was younger than he'd thought, probably his age. Light brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup. Tired eyes that held a strange combination of fear and determination. She wore a faded blue sweatshirt with a coffee stain on the sleeve and jeans that had seen better days. But it was the way she stood that caught him, completely still, processing, calculating. Her daughter pressed against her side, small hands gripping her mother's shirt. Emma's mind raced. She recognized him too. Not from the shooting. She'd been too focused on survival to see faces. But she recognized the energy. The same energy that had filled the parking lot that day. Danger. "I'm not here to hurt you," Marcus said quietly, keeping his distance, his hands visible and open. Emma said nothing. Her voice was gone again. It always disappeared around stress. Marcus took a small step back, understanding instinctively that she needed space. "I was there that day. At the school. I saw what you did." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "You saved your little girl. That was incredible." Emma's breathing was shallow. She wanted to run, but her feet wouldn't move. Lily looked up at her, confused and scared. "I know you can't talk right now," Marcus continued softly. "My cousin was like that sometimes. She had autism. She'd go silent when things got too loud in her head." He glanced down. "I just wanted you to know that you're in danger. The crew that was shooting that day, they're still around. They're unpredictable, and this neighborhood isn't safe right now." Emma's eyes narrowed. Why was a gang member warning her about gang violence? Was this a threat? Marcus seemed to read her expression. "I'm trying to get out," he said, and for the first time, his voice carried something other than street hardness. It carried exhaustion. "I've been trying for 2 years. But you don't just leave the Kings. They don't let you walk away clean." He met her eyes directly. "I saw you protect your daughter that day, and I thought maybe if I could at least warn you, keep one person safe, maybe that would count for something." Emma's hand moved to her pocket where she kept a small notepad and pen. She always carried them for moments, when her voice disappeared. She wrote quickly and held it up. "Why should I trust you?" Marcus smiled sadly. "You shouldn't. I wouldn't trust me either." He pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket and set it on the shelf between them. But if you need help, if anything happens, that's my number. No strings, no expectations. Just someone who knows how this world works." He turned and walked away before she could respond. Emma stood frozen for a full minute. Lily tugged on her sleeve. "Mommy, who was that?" Emma finally found her voice, small and uncertain. "I don't know, baby. I really don't know." She left the paper on the shelf and finished her shopping quickly. But that night, lying in bed in their small apartment on the third floor of a building that smelled like mildew and broken dreams, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the look in that man's eyes. She'd spent her whole life reading patterns, not people. Neurotypical humans confused her with their hidden meanings and social games. But this man, this dangerous man, had spoken to her in a language she understood. Direct, honest, clear. Still, she wouldn't call him. She couldn't. Emma had learned long ago that the world was not kind to people like her. Young, autistic, single mother, barely surviving on disability payments and the occasional cleaning job she could handle. She'd learned to trust only herself and Lily. Everyone else eventually left, or hurt them. She fell asleep counting the cracks in her ceiling. 47 visible lines, patterns, order, safety. But safety was about to become a luxury she could no longer afford. The next morning, Emma dropped Lily off at school with her stomach in knots. The shooting had happened nearly a week ago, but the fear hadn't faded. She watched other parents chatting easily, laughing, connecting. Emma stood apart as always, unable to join their world. Social interaction felt like speaking a foreign language without a translator. "Mrs. Davidson," a teacher approached. "Can we talk for a moment?" Emma nodded stiffly. "Lily's doing wonderfully in class," the teacher said warmly. "But I wanted to check in with you. After the incident last week, some of the children have been showing signs of trauma. Lily seems remarkably calm. How is she processing things at home?" Emma's response came out flat, rehearsed. "We talk about it. She draws pictures. We count things together. It helps." The teacher's smile was kind, but carried a hint of concern. "And how are you processing it?" Nobody ever asked Emma that question. She didn't know how to answer. "I'm fine," she said, which was the expected response, even though it wasn't true. Walking home alone after drop-off, Emma noticed a black SUV moving slowly down her street. It passed her once, circled the block, passed her again. Her pattern recognition activated immediately. This wasn't random. This was surveillance. Her heart rate spiked. She walked faster, not running because running would confirm she'd noticed. Her apartment building came into view. 2 more blocks. The SUV slowed down beside her. The window rolled down. A man with a blue bandana tied around his head leaned out. "Yo, you Emma Davidson?" Emma's voice vanished. She kept walking, eyes straight ahead, hands trembling. "Hey, I'm talking to you," the man called out, irritation creeping into his voice. The SUV matched her pace. "We know you saw something last week. We know you were at the school. We need to know what you told the cops." Emma hadn't told the police anything beyond basic facts. She'd been too overwhelmed to give a detailed statement. But these men didn't know that. And they didn't look like they'd believe her even if she could speak. "Get in the car," the man said. It wasn't a request. "We just want to talk." Emma's mind calculated with lightning speed. If she got in that vehicle, she was dead. If she ran, they'd chase her down. If she screamed, they might shoot. She was 2 blocks from home, maybe 15 witnesses on the street if she was lucky. But would anyone help a strange woman being harassed by gang members? Her hand moved to her pocket. The crumpled paper. The phone number. She'd gone back to the store and taken it. She didn't know why. Maybe some part of her had known this moment was coming. The SUV door opened. A second man stepped out onto the street, blocking her path. He was massive, easily 6'4", covered in tattoos. His eyes were cold. "Last chance," he said quietly. "Easy way or hard way?" Emma's thumb was already typing on her phone, hidden in her pocket. 7 digits. Send. She didn't type a message. There wasn't time. Just the call for help to a stranger who might be her only chance. The large man stepped closer. His hand reached for her arm, and then a motorcycle roared around the corner. Marcus Webb appeared like something out of a movie, his bike screaming to a halt between Emma and the 2 men. He wasn't wearing his red bandana. He wasn't representing the Kings. He was just one man facing down 2 members of a rival crew. "She's with me," Marcus said, his voice carrying the kind of authority that came from years of earned respect on these streets. "Back off." The man with the blue bandana laughed. "This ain't your territory, King, and you're outnumbered." "Maybe," Marcus replied calmly. "But you're about to create a scene in broad daylight with witnesses everywhere. Police response time to this area is 3.5 minutes. You really want to be here when they show up asking questions about harassing a young mother?" The 2 men exchanged glances. They were calculating, just like Emma had been. Was this worth the risk? "This ain't over," the tattooed man said, but he was already backing toward the SUV. "We'll remember this." "I'm counting on it," Marcus said coldly. The SUV pulled away, tires squealing. Only then did Marcus turn to Emma. She was shaking so hard she could barely stand. Her phone was still clutched in her hand, his number glowing on the screen. "You called me," he said softly, almost surprised. Emma nodded. Her voice was completely gone now, buried under layers of shock and sensory overload, but her eyes said everything. "Thank you. I'm terrified. Why did you come? What happens now?" Marcus understood without words. "Come on," he said gently. "Let's get you somewhere safe. You can't go home right now. They know where you live." Emma shook her head frantically. She couldn't leave. Lily, school, pickup, the routine. Marcus seemed to read her panic. "When do you need to pick up your daughter?" Emma held up her phone, typed quickly. 2:45 p.m. He checked his watch. 4 hours. "Okay, we have time. But right now, we need to move. They're probably circling back with more people." Emma hesitated. Every instinct told her not to trust him, but every pattern she recognized told her those men would kill her if they found her alone. She'd seen enough violence in her neighborhood to know how these stories ended. She made a decision that terrified her. She nodded. Marcus helped her onto his motorcycle, showing her where to hold on. "I know this is probably sensory hell for you," he said quietly. "The noise, the vibration, all of it. But I need to get you to my brother's place across town. He's a veteran. He's safe. Can you handle 10 minutes? Emma gripped the sides of his jacket. She didn't have a choice. She had to handle it. The ride was exactly as terrible as Marcus had predicted. The engine roared beneath her, vibrating through every nerve. The wind whipped against her face. The sounds of traffic merged into one overwhelming wall of noise. Emma closed her eyes and counted. 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi. 3 Mississippi. It was the only thing keeping her from a complete meltdown. When they finally stopped, Emma's legs barely worked. Marcus steadied her as she climbed off the bike. They stood in front of a small house with a neat lawn and an American flag hanging by the door. It looked normal. Safe. A man stepped onto the porch. He was older than Marcus, maybe 30, with a military haircut and a prosthetic right leg. His eyes were sharp, assessing, but not unkind. "This is the situation?" he asked Marcus. "Yeah. Northside crew is after her. She witnessed the school shooting last week." The veteran's expression darkened. "They went after a mother and kid?" "She's special, Derek," Marcus said, and there was something protective in his voice that surprised even him. She's autistic. She can't always talk, and she's got a little girl who needs her." Derek studied Emma for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Come inside. You're safe here." The house was quiet, organized, clean lines and minimal clutter. Emma's nervous system began to calm slightly. This environment made sense to her in a way that chaos never could. Derek poured her a glass of water and sat across from her at the kitchen table. "I'm going to be straight with you," he said. "My brother is trying to leave the life. He's been working with me for 2 years to find a way out. But the Kings don't let people go easy. The fact that he just openly protected you from the Northside crew just made his situation 100 times worse." Emma's eyes widened. She grabbed her notepad, wrote frantically. "I didn't ask him to help me." "I know," Derek said gently, "but he chose to anyway. That's who Marcus is under all the street tough act. He's been trying to find his way back to being a good person for a long time. I think maybe you reminded him why that matters." Emma looked confused. She'd done nothing. She was nobody. Just a broken single mother trying to survive. Derek seemed to see her thoughts. "You protected your kid under gunfire using nothing but your wits. Marcus saw that. It meant something to him." He paused. "Now we need to figure out how to keep you both alive." The conversation that followed was the most difficult of Emma's life. Derek explained that the Northside crew didn't make idle threats. If they wanted her silent, they'd come for her. And now that Marcus had interfered, the Kings would see him as a traitor. He'd made himself a target to save her. Emma wrote, "What do I do?" "You let us help you," Marcus said from the doorway. He'd been listening quietly. "My brother has connections, military guys who work security. We can get you and your daughter into protective custody while we figure this out." Emma shook her head violently. No police. She'd learned early that autistic people and police encounters often went badly. She couldn't risk it. And protective custody meant losing control, losing routine, losing everything that kept her and Lily stable. "Then what?" Marcus asked, frustration and concern mixing in his voice. "You just go home and wait for them to show up?" Emma didn't have an answer. She just knew she couldn't let Lily see her mother being taken away by police, or strange men, or anyone who disrupted the fragile sense of safety she'd tried so hard to build. Derek leaned forward. "There might be another option, but it's risky, and it requires trust." He looked at Marcus. "Your old crew has been trying to take down the Northside crew for years. If we could give them information, real actionable intel about the crew's operations, they might handle this problem themselves." "That's using gang violence to solve gang violence," Marcus said quietly. "That's what I'm trying to get away from." "It's also the only language these guys understand," Derek countered. "You want to save this woman and her kid? This is the fastest way." Emma watched the brothers argue, seeing clearly the war inside Marcus. He was trying to be better than his past, but his past might be the only thing that could save her future. She reached out and touched Marcus's hand. It was the first time she'd voluntarily touched another human being besides Lily in years. Physical contact was usually overwhelming, but right now, she needed him to understand. He looked down at her hand on his, then up at her face. She wrote, "Do what you have to do. I trust you." Marcus stared at those words. "I trust you." When was the last time anyone had said that to him? When was the last time anyone had seen past the gang colors and prison time and street reputation to the person underneath? "Okay," he said finally, "but we do this smart. We don't just start a war, we end one." What happened over the next 6 hours was a masterclass in street intelligence. Marcus made calls. He reached out to contacts he'd been avoiding for months. He gathered information about the Northside crew's operations, locations, schedules, things he'd learned during his years in the life. Meanwhile, Emma sat quietly in Derek's living room, her mind processing everything at lightning speed. She wasn't just a victim waiting to be saved. Her brain was designed for patterns, and what Marcus was describing were patterns. Criminal patterns. She picked up a pen and paper, started writing. Names, locations, times. Everything Marcus mentioned. And then she started drawing connections, lines between people and places, schedules that overlapped, weaknesses in the operation that Marcus hadn't even noticed. When she held up her notes, both brothers stared in amazement. "How did you see all that?" Derek asked. Emma wrote, "It's what my brain does. Patterns are easy. People are hard." Marcus studied her analysis with growing respect. "This is better than anything our guys ever put together," he said slowly. "You just mapped out their entire operation." Emma wrote, "Now what?" "Now," Marcus said, pulling out his phone. "I make a call I swore I'd never make again." 20 minutes later, they were meeting in the back room of a boxing gym on the east side. 3 high-ranking members of the Kings sat across from Marcus, their faces hard and suspicious. Marcus had brought Emma's written analysis. He laid it on the table. "This is everything you need to take down the Northside crew," he said. "Every location, every schedule, every weakness. You've been trying to push them out for years. Here's your chance." The leader, a man named T-Bone, who'd known Marcus since he was a kid, picked up the papers. His eyes widened as he read. "Where'd you get this intel?" "From someone smart enough to see what the rest of us missed," Marcus said carefully. He didn't mention Emma directly. Involving her more than necessary was too dangerous. "And what do you want in return?" T-Bone asked, because nothing in this world was free. Marcus took a breath. "Protection for a young mother and her kid. The Northside crew is after them. Witness intimidation. You shut them down, the threat disappears. And then I walk away. Clean. No debt. No looking back." The room went silent. Asking to leave the Kings was asking for death. But the intel Marcus had provided was pure gold. And T-Bone had always respected Marcus, even admired his skill and loyalty. "You must really care about this woman," T-Bone said finally. "To risk everything like this." Marcus met his eyes steadily. "I care about doing one good thing before I'm too far gone to remember what good looks like." T-Bone studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "We'll handle the Northside crew. They've been asking for this anyway. But you, Marcus Webb, you disappear after this. You don't come back to this neighborhood. You don't reach out to old friends. You're a ghost. Because if I see you again after this, I can't protect you from the others, who won't understand why I let you walk away." "Deal," Marcus said without hesitation. That night, the East Side Kings moved with coordinated precision. Using Emma's intelligence, they hit every Northside crew location simultaneously. It wasn't a war, it was a strategic dismantling. By dawn, 18 members of the Northside crew were in police custody, caught with enough evidence that they'd be behind bars for years. The rest scattered, their power broken. Emma learned about it through the news while feeding Lily breakfast in Derek's kitchen. She'd spent the night there, too afraid to go home, too overwhelmed to process everything happening. Multiple arrests across Toledo last night, as a major gang operation was dismantled through coordinated police efforts, the news anchor reported. Sources say an anonymous tip provided crucial intelligence that led to this breakthrough. Marcus walked into the kitchen, looking more exhausted than Emma had ever seen a person look. But there was something else in his eyes now. Relief. Hope. "It's done," he said simply. "You're safe. Lily's safe. The Northside crew is finished." Emma's hands trembled as she wrote. "What about you? What happens to you now?" "I disappear," Marcus said, sitting down heavily. "Leave Toledo. Start over somewhere nobody knows my name or my face. It's the deal I made." Emma felt something crack inside her chest. This man who she'd known for barely a week, this dangerous man who'd somehow become her protector, was about to vanish from her life forever. And the strangest part was that she didn't want him to go. For someone who found human connection nearly impossible, who lived in a world of routines and patterns because people were too complicated to understand, Emma had somehow connected with Marcus in a way that made sense to her. He spoke directly. He did what he said. He didn't play social games or use hidden meanings. He was honest in a way that the neurotypical world rarely was with her. She wrote, "Thank you isn't enough for what you did." Marcus smiled sadly. "You gave me something I didn't think I'd ever have. You trusted me when you had no reason to. You saw me as more than just a gang member or a criminal. That's worth more than thank you." Lily walked over to Marcus, holding her favorite stuffed rabbit. She'd barely spoken to him before, afraid and shy. But now she held the rabbit out to him. "You can have Mr. Hoppy," she said in her small voice, "to keep you safe when you go away." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. He knelt down to her level, taking the rabbit gently. "Thank you, Lily. I'll take very good care of him." Emma watched this exchange and made a decision that terrified her more than the gang threats, more than the shooting, more than anything she'd ever done in her carefully controlled life. She wrote quickly, hands shaking, and held up the note before she could change her mind. "Don't go alone. Come with us. We need you. I need you." Marcus stared at the words. "Emma, I can't ask that of you. You barely know me. I've done terrible things. I'm trying to be better. But my past doesn't just disappear." Emma wrote, "My autism doesn't disappear either. The world tells me I'm broken every single day. But you never made me feel that way. You saw my strength before my disability. Maybe I can see your future instead of your past." Derek cleared his throat from the doorway. "For what it's worth, little brother, I've seen you these past few days. You've been more like the kid I grew up with than the gang member you became. Maybe that woman and her daughter are your chance to stay that person." Marcus looked between Emma, Lily, and Derek. His entire life, he'd been told he was worthless, told he'd never amount to anything, told that violence was his only value. He'd believed it for so long that he'd become it. But Emma saw him differently. This autistic woman who struggled to connect with anyone had chosen to connect with him. This mother who'd been victimized and threatened had decided he was worth trusting. This child who'd witnessed gang violence had offered him her most precious possession to keep him safe. "I don't know how to be in a relationship," Marcus said honestly. "I don't know how to be a father figure. I don't know how to do any of this normal life stuff." Emma wrote, "I don't know how to be normal either. Maybe we can figure out our own version together." 3 months later, in a small apartment in Columbus, 2 hours from Toledo, Emma hung curtains in her new living room. They were soft blue, the color that didn't trigger her sensory issues. The apartment was quiet, organized, structured exactly the way she needed it. Lily attended a new school where nobody knew about the shooting. She'd made a friend, just one. But for Lily, that was enough. She came home every day with stories that Emma listened to with full attention, even when her brain struggled to process the social dynamics Lily described. Marcus worked construction, honest work that made his body ache, but his conscience clear. He'd enrolled in night classes, working toward his GED. For the first time in his life, he was building something instead of tearing things down. And Emma had started speaking more often. Not always. Some days her voice still disappeared. But Marcus had learned her signals, learned when she needed silence and when she needed support. He'd learned that her need for routine wasn't rigidity, it was survival. He'd learned that when she made eye contact with him, something she rarely did with anyone, it meant she felt safe. They weren't a conventional family. Marcus slept on the couch, respecting boundaries, letting their relationship grow at Emma's pace. Some days were hard. Emma would have meltdowns from sensory overload. Marcus would wake up panicking from nightmares about his past. Lily would cry about missing her old school, her old life. But they faced it together. One evening, Emma found Marcus sitting on the small balcony, staring out at the city lights. She sat beside him in comfortable silence. After a while, she held up her notebook. "I never thought I'd have this. A family. Someone who understands." Marcus read the words and smiled. "I never thought I'd deserve it. But you make me want to be the man you see when you look at me." Emma wrote, "You already are. You were from the moment you warned me in that grocery store. The streets didn't define you. Your choices did. And you chose to be good." Marcus took her hand. It was a simple gesture, but for Emma, it meant everything. She squeezed back. Lily opened the balcony door. "Mommy, Marcus, can we play the counting game before bed?" It had become their nightly ritual. Lily would pick a topic, and they'd all count together. Tonight it was stars. They couldn't see many in the city, but they could imagine. "1 star for Mommy being brave," Lily started. 2 stars for Lily being strong," Marcus continued. Emma's voice came out quiet but steady. 3 stars for Marcus choosing us." They sat together, counting imaginary stars, until Lily fell asleep between them. Marcus carried her inside and tucked her into bed. Emma watched from the doorway, seeing this man who'd fought for survival his entire life, now fighting for something better. For love. For family. For redemption. Later, as Marcus returned to his couch, Emma stopped him. She wrote something and handed it to him. "Move into the bedroom. Not because you have to. Because I want you to. Because you're not a guest anymore. You're home." Marcus read it 3 times. Tears ran down his face. "Are you sure?" Emma nodded. Then, in a voice that was barely a whisper, but carried the weight of absolute certainty, she spoke. "I'm sure. You saved us. Now let us save you back." They stood in the quiet apartment, 2 broken people who'd found each other in the middle of chaos and violence and fear. An autistic mother who'd been told her whole life she was too different to belong. A reformed gang member who'd been told he'd never amount to anything but violence. Together, they were proof that the world was wrong. 6 months after that, Emma stood in a courtroom in Toledo. She'd returned only once for this. Marcus stood beside her, holding her hand. Lily sat with Derek in the gallery. The prosecutor had asked Emma to testify about the school shooting, about the intimidation from the Northside crew. She'd been terrified to do it. Public speaking was nearly impossible for her. But these men needed to face justice, and she was the only witness willing to speak. When her name was called, Emma walked to the witness stand on shaking legs. The courtroom was full of people. Too many eyes. Too much noise. Her voice started to disappear before she even sat down. The defense attorney saw her distress and tried to use it. "Your Honor, this witness appears unable to communicate effectively." Marcus stood up in the gallery. "She's autistic. Give her time." The judge looked at Emma with kind eyes. "Ms. Davidson, take all the time you need. Would it help if we dimmed the lights?" Emma nodded. The bright fluorescence had been overwhelming her. The bailiff dimmed the lights. The courtroom quieted, and slowly Emma found her voice. She testified for 40 minutes, describing everything she'd witnessed with the precise detail her autistic brain never forgot. Exact times, exact positions, exact sounds. The defense attorney tried to shake her testimony, but you can't shake someone who thinks in patterns and facts. Emma's memory was flawless. When she finished, the prosecutor approached her gently. "Ms. Davidson, One final question. You were a young mother, alone, caught in crossfire. What made you think you could save your daughter? Emma looked at Marcus in the gallery, then at Lily, then back at the prosecutor. I didn't think, she said clearly. I just knew that being different had made me weak my whole life. But that day, being different made me strong. My brain sees what others miss. And that day, it saw the path to survival. I saved my daughter because my autism gave me the ability to process information fast enough to do it. The same brain everyone told me was broken was the exact brain we needed in that moment. Silence filled the courtroom. I used to think I was cursed, Emma continued, her voice growing stronger. But I'm not cursed. I'm just wired different. And different isn't less. It's just different. That man in the gallery, Marcus Webb, he saw that when nobody else did. He protected me because he understood that my value wasn't measured by how well I fit in. It was measured by how fiercely I loved my daughter. And in return, I saw him. Really saw him. Not a gang member. Not a criminal. A man trying to be better. We saved each other by seeing the good that everyone else missed. The jury returned a guilty verdict in less than 3 hours. Emma, Marcus, and Lily walked out of the courthouse together. Snow was beginning to fall, just like that Christmas night, when everything started in the training example Emma had read about other people's stories. But this was their story now. Mommy, Lily asked, are the bad people gone forever? Emma knelt down to her level. The ones who hurt us are. But sweetheart, there will always be challenges. That's life. What matters is that we face them together. Marcus crouched beside them. And that we never forget that being different is what saved us. Your mom's autism, my past experience, even your kindness, Lily. All of it mattered. If you want to see how Emma and Marcus built their new life together, please hit that like button. It truly helps us share more stories of neurodivergent triumph. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Emma. 2 years passed. Emma still had hard days when sounds became too loud and her voice disappeared completely. But she'd found work doing data analysis from home. Companies were finally learning that autistic minds excelled at pattern recognition, at seeing connections others missed. Emma's unique brain, the one she'd been told was broken, was now earning her more money than she'd ever dreamed possible. Marcus became a certified electrician. His hands, once used for violence, now wired homes and kept families safe. He'd started mentoring at-risk youth, telling his story, showing them there was another path. Not an easy one, but a possible one. Lily thrived in school. She'd inherited her mother's gift for mathematics and patterns. Teachers who once might have dismissed a child from a troubled background now saw her potential, because Emma made sure they understood her daughter was more than her circumstances. On a Saturday morning, Emma sat in their small kitchen working on a client's project. Numbers and patterns flowed across her screen like poetry. Marcus walked in and set a cup of coffee beside her, made exactly how she liked it. He'd learned her preferences through careful observation. That was his language of love, attention to detail. Lily bounded into the room wearing her soccer uniform. She'd joined a team, something Emma had been terrified to let her do. Too many variables, too many things that could go wrong. But Marcus had gently reminded her that Lily needed to build her own life, not live in Emma's protected bubble. "Ready, kiddo?" Marcus asked. "Ready," Lily beamed. Then she ran to Emma and hugged her. "Will you come watch today, Mommy?" Emma's chest tightened. Soccer games were sensory nightmares. Crowds, screaming, unpredictability. Everything her autism hated. But Lily's hopeful face was everything her heart loved. "Yes," Emma said softly. I'll be there." At the field, Emma sat in the car for 5 minutes, preparing herself. Marcus held her hand. "We can leave anytime you need to," he reminded her. "No judgment." Emma nodded. She put in her noise-reducing earbuds, adjusted her sunglasses to dim the brightness, and took Marcus's hand. Together, they walked to the bleachers. The game was exactly as overwhelming as she'd feared. But every time Emma felt her system beginning to overload, she'd look at Lily running across the field, face bright with joy, and she'd find the strength to stay. Because this was what love looked like for her. Choosing discomfort so her daughter could have normal experiences. Lily scored a goal. The crowd erupted. Marcus jumped up cheering. Emma's hands flew to her ears, the noise physically painful. But she watched her daughter's face light up with pride, and despite the sensory assault, Emma smiled. After the game, Lily ran to them, sweaty and glowing. "Did you see, Mommy? Did you see my goal?" Emma pulled her close, not caring about the mess or sweat, things she usually couldn't tolerate. "I saw everything, baby. You were incredible." That night, after Lily was asleep, Emma and Marcus sat on their balcony again. It had become their space for serious conversations. Marcus pulled out a small box. Emma's pattern recognition brain immediately identified the size and shape. Engagement ring. Her heart stopped. "I know you don't like surprises," Marcus said carefully. "So I'm not trying to surprise you. I'm asking you clearly and directly, because that's how you need information delivered." Emma's hands trembled as she reached for her notebook, but Marcus gently stopped her. "You don't have to write," he said. "I just need you to listen. Then you can take all the time you need to answer." He opened the box, a simple silver band with a small sapphire, her favorite color, the one that didn't overwhelm her senses. "Emma Davidson, you saved my life 2 years ago when you decided I was worth trusting. You showed me that my past doesn't define my future. You've taught me that love isn't about fixing broken people. It's about seeing the whole person and choosing them anyway." He paused, emotion thick in his voice. "You're autistic. I'm a reformed gang member. We're not what society considers normal, but we're real, and we're good, and we're building something that matters. Will you marry me? Not because you need me to protect you anymore. You're strong enough to protect yourself, but because we're better together than apart." Emma's voice was completely gone, lost to the overwhelming emotion. But she didn't reach for her notebook. Instead, she took Marcus's face in her hands and kissed him. It was only their 3rd kiss ever. Physical affection was still challenging for her, but this moment required more than words written on paper. When she pulled back, tears streamed down both their faces. Emma forced her voice to work. It came out as barely a whisper. "Yes." Marcus slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly, because he'd noticed her jewelry size months ago, always watching, always learning how to love her in ways she could receive. "I don't know how to plan a wedding," Emma admitted quietly. "Too many people, too much sensory input." "Then we don't have a big wedding," Marcus said simply. "We get married in a courthouse with Lily and Derek as witnesses. Small, quiet, perfect for us. Unless you want something different." Emma shook her head. "That's perfect, because you're right. We're not normal. We're us. And us is enough." The wedding happened 3 months later, just as Marcus had promised. Small courthouse ceremony. Lily as flower girl. Derek as best man. Emma wore a soft blue dress with no scratchy fabric, no tight waist, nothing that would trigger her sensory issues. Marcus wore a simple suit. The judge who married them was the same one who'd presided over the gang trial. She'd asked to perform the ceremony when she heard about it. "I've seen a lot of cases in my courtroom," she said during the ceremony, "but I've never seen a story quite like yours. You two found each other in the darkest circumstances and chose to build light together. That's what marriage is supposed to be. When Emma and Marcus kissed as husband and wife, Lily cheered so loudly that Emma winced from the noise. But she laughed through it. Some sounds, the happy ones, were worth the sensory discomfort. The reception was at Derek's house. Just 6 people total. Pizza instead of fancy catering. Board games instead of dancing. It was perfect because it was designed for Emma's needs, not society's expectations. As the evening wound down, Derek pulled Marcus aside. "You did good, little brother. You turned your life completely around." Marcus shook his head. "Emma turned my life around. I just held on and tried not to mess it up." "No," Derek corrected. "You both saved each other. That's what real love looks like." 5 years later, Emma stood in front of a room full of people at a neurodiversity conference in Cleveland. Public speaking was still her nightmare. But she'd been invited to share her story, and she'd decided some stories needed to be told. Marcus sat in the front row, Lily beside him. She was 11 now, confident and bright. A second child, a boy they'd adopted named Tyler, sat on Marcus's lap. Tyler was also autistic, nonverbal. They'd adopted him from foster care 2 years ago because Emma remembered what it felt like to be a child nobody understood. Emma's voice shook as she began. "My name is Emma Davidson Webb. I'm autistic. For most of my life, that diagnosis felt like a prison sentence. I was told I'd never have meaningful relationships, never hold a steady job, never be a good mother. The world saw my autism as a disability, something to be fixed or hidden or apologized for." She paused, breathing through the anxiety. Marcus gave her an encouraging nod. "But 5 years ago, I was caught in gang crossfire outside my daughter's school, and the same autistic brain that society called broken was the exact brain that saved our lives. My pattern recognition, my rapid processing, my ability to stay calm under pressure. These weren't disabilities in that moment. They were superpowers." The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. And then a man named Marcus Webb, a gang member trying to leave that life behind, saw me when I was most vulnerable. He didn't see a disabled woman. He saw someone strong, someone worth protecting, someone worth loving. And I saw him, not his past, not his mistakes, the man he was trying to become. Emma's voice grew stronger. "We're proof that neurodivergent people aren't broken puzzles waiting to be solved. We're complete human beings with different wiring. Our brains work differently, not worse. And sometimes our differences are exactly what the world needs most." She held up a chart showing her data analysis company's growth. "Today, I run a successful business hiring specifically neurodivergent data analysts because I learned that pattern recognition, attention to detail, and systematic thinking aren't just autism traits. They're business assets. My employees thrive because I've created an environment that accommodates their needs. Flexible hours, quiet workspaces, clear communication, direct feedback, things that help neurodivergent minds excel." Emma's eyes found Marcus. "And my husband works with at-risk youth, using his story of redemption to show them that one bad chapter doesn't write your entire book. He teaches them that change is possible, but only if someone sees your potential before you can see it yourself." She took a deep breath. "To every autistic person in this room who's been told they're too different, too difficult, too broken, you're not. You're exactly who you're supposed to be. Find people who see your strength. Find environments that support your needs. And never apologize for your brain working differently. Because different isn't less. Different is just different. And sometimes, different saves lives." The standing ovation was deafening. Emma's hands flew to her noise-reducing earbuds, but she smiled through it. Because this time, the overwhelming noise was celebrating her, not dismissing her. After the conference, a young autistic woman approached Emma with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "I needed to hear that someone like me could have a full life. Love, family, success." Emma took her hand gently. "You can have all of it, but you have to stop waiting for the world to understand you. Start building a life that works for your brain, not against it. Find your Marcus. Find your purpose. Find your strength." The woman nodded, hope blooming in her eyes for maybe the first time. That night, back in their Columbus home, Emma tucked both Lily and Tyler into bed. Tyler communicated through sign language and picture cards. Emma had learned his language because that's what love did. It learned. He signed to her, "Safe here." Emma signed back, "Always safe, always loved, always home." She found Marcus in the kitchen doing dishes, something he did every night to give her time to decompress from the day. He'd learned that acts of service were his way of showing love when her sensory system couldn't handle too much physical affection. "You were incredible today," he said, without turning around. "I've never been more proud of anyone in my entire life." Emma wrapped her arms around him from behind. "I wouldn't be here without you. That day you warned me in the grocery store, that was the day my life split into before and after." Marcus turned and held her face gently. "You want to know the truth? I was supposed to meet my crew that morning. I was supposed to help plan a retaliation hit against the Northside crew. But I saw you standing there, struggling to find your voice, looking so afraid, yet so determined to protect your daughter. And I thought, what am I doing with my life? What's the point of all this violence?" Emma's eyes widened. She'd never known that part. "You didn't just save my life, Emma. You gave me a reason to save myself. Every choice I made after that, leaving the Kings, protecting you, building this life, it all started because you made me want to be the kind of man who deserved to know someone as strong as you." Emma's voice came out steady and clear. "Then we saved each other. I gave you hope. You gave me safety. And together, we built something neither of us thought was possible. A family. A real family." Marcus kissed her forehead. "The best family. Because it's ours." 10 years after the shooting, Emma sat with Lily, now 16, helping her fill out college applications. Lily wanted to study neuroscience, fascinated by how her mother's brain worked, determined to help the world understand autism better. Tyler, now 8, sat at the table with them, working on a tablet that helped him communicate. He'd started an art program at school, his drawings showing a unique perspective that galleries had begun to notice. His autism gave him a way of seeing color and pattern that neurotypical artists struggled to replicate. Marcus walked in from his new job. He'd gone back to school and become a social worker, specifically working with kids in the foster system, kids from gang backgrounds, kids who needed someone to believe in them the way Derek and Emma had believed in him. "How was work?" Emma asked. "I placed 3 kids into good homes today," Marcus said with deep satisfaction. 3 kids who won't have to grow up the way I did." The family gathered for dinner around their table. It was their sacred time. No phones, no distractions, just the 4 of them, sharing their days, supporting each other, being the family none of them thought they'd ever have. "I got accepted to the summer neuroscience program," Lily announced excitedly. Tyler made a happy sound and held up his tablet. It showed one of his paintings being selected for a youth exhibition. Emma and Marcus looked at each other across the table, both thinking the same thing. How did we get so lucky? Later, when the kids were asleep, Emma found Marcus on their balcony, that familiar spot where so many important conversations had happened. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, settling beside him. "That parking lot," Marcus admitted. 10 years ago, watching you protect Lily while bullets flew. If I'd walked away that day, if I hadn't warned you about the danger, if I hadn't answered when you called, where would we all be now?" Emma took his hand. "But you didn't walk away. You chose connection over convenience. You chose to see me as a person worth protecting. And I chose to trust you when every survival instinct said not to. We chose each other, Marcus. Every day since then, we keep choosing each other." "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Letting a former gang member into your life? Into Lily's life?" Emma turned to face him fully. "Marcus Webb, you are the best decision I ever made. You're an incredible husband, an amazing father, a changed man who uses his past to create better futures for others. The only thing I regret is that I can't go back and tell that terrified woman in the grocery store that everything's going to be okay, that the scary man in the black hoodie is actually her salvation." Marcus pulled her close. "I love you, Emma. Your autism, your quirks, your need for routine, your struggles, your strength, all of it. You're the most extraordinary person I've ever known." "I love you too," Emma whispered. "You saw me when the world refused to look. That's the greatest gift anyone ever gave me." They sat together under the stars, two people who'd found each other in chaos and built something beautiful out of broken pieces. An autistic woman who'd learned that her different brain was a strength, not a weakness. A reformed gang member who'd learned that his past didn't have to dictate his future. And two children who'd inherited the best parts of both of them: Emma's intelligence and determination, Marcus's fierce protectiveness and loyalty. Their story wasn't perfect. Emma still had hard days when her voice disappeared and the world felt too loud. Marcus still woke from nightmares about his years in the streets. Tyler struggled with communication. Lily worried about her mom and brother being judged. But they faced it all together. Because that's what family meant. Not perfection. Not fitting into society's mold. Just showing up for each other, day after day, choice after choice. Love expressed through understanding, accommodation, protection, and unwavering commitment. And on this night, 10 years after a shooting that could have destroyed them, Emma and Marcus sat together under the Columbus sky, grateful for every twist of fate that had brought them to this moment. Grateful for the gang violence that had revealed Emma's hidden strength. Grateful for Marcus's decision to break free from his past. Grateful for the chance to build something neither of them had ever dared to dream was possible. A normal family built on extraordinary circumstances. An autistic woman and a former gang member showing the world that labels don't define destiny. That love doesn't require perfection, just commitment. That being wired differently isn't a curse. It's often exactly the gift the world needs most. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor, hit that like button. It helps us continue sharing these powerful stories of neurodivergent triumph and unexpected redemption. Subscribe for more true stories that challenge what society says is possible. Comment below and tell us about a time when someone saw your strength when everyone else only saw your struggles. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Remember, being different isn't a disability. It's often your greatest superpower. You just need someone who sees it. And sometimes, that someone comes from the most unexpected place. See you in the next story.